Today on Alaskan Ballistics, what I think is the most overrated caliber. Welcome back to Alaskan Ballistics. I hope you're doing well today. My name is Chuck. Don't forget to join my MeWe group for the best deals to help the channel, as well as my Patreon group to get videos early. We really appreciate all the support from both of those groups. A few weeks ago, I was on Reloading Weatherby. Channel link in the description below. He's changed his channel name. He should keep it Reloading Weatherby. Go tell him I said so. Anyway, he challenged me on what I thought was the most overrated cartridge. And without hesitation, I said the 270 Winchester. Later, Chook, my buddy who loves the 270 Winchester more than he loves the brothels in the different Asian countries he's visited, challenged me to make a video about it, and he's going to make a rebuttal video. So go watch his rebuttal video. I haven't seen his rebuttal video yet, but go see if it has actual facts or just kind of snowflake FUD hurt feelings in it. Now, let me start by making this statement. I like the 270 Winchester for many applications, and I may hunt caribou with my wife's Tika because it's light and durable and a great caliber for caribou, black bear, and possibly even moose. It's a wonderful whitetail caliber. With the right bullet, it has taken every big game in North America and many mid-sized game in Africa. Winchester released the 270 Winchester in 1925. Its parent case was actually the 3303, and its bullet diameter is 0.277 inches. The case capacity can hold 67 grains of water. The maximum pressure should be around 65,000 psi. It typically sends a 90 grain bullet at 3,600 feet per second, a 130 grain bullet at 3,060 feet per second, a 140 grain bullet at 2,950 feet per second, and a 150 grain bullet between 2,850 and 2,900 feet per second. It typically gets from 2,500 to 2,800 foot-pounds of energy, depending on the load. Let's start with what Jack O'Connor said. It is said that he's the 270 man, and he wrote extensively on the cartridge. But even he stated the 30-06 was a better cartridge, and he only took mini grizzly with it because he was carrying the 270 while hunting sheep, which he preferred it as a sheep cartridge. Sheep aren't much tougher than deer, so it is an ideal cartridge for that, especially for the longer range flat shooting that Dall sheep and other sheep hunting requires. Now, all of that being said, I'm not saying I hate the caliber. I own one. I've owned two other ones in the past. It's a good caliber for many things. It's just obsolete. There are better calibers for everything that you could do with this cartridge. So here are my three main reasons. Reason number 3, consistency from rifle to rifle. 2, other cartridges do a better job with the same case capacity at bullet weights. And number 1, other cartridges do a better job at ballistics. So let's deep dive into these 3 reasons. Every 270 I've owned has had a different length chamber. And this is reason number 3, rifle to rifle consistency. There's no such thing as a match grade chamber. You don't see it on a 270. You don't have a load like 168 grain Sierra Match Kings from Federal Gold Medal Match that you can stick in any 270 and it'll be accurate. They're so different from rifle to rifle to rifle. In fact, 2 of the 270s I own, if I load the bullet, the proper amount off the lands to get good node right there that's before the lands, the bullet's longer than my magazine. And that's in the current Tika that my wife has and an old Browning that I used to have. And that one got really bad with throat erosion, and I had to keep moving where the bullet was every few hundred rounds. And so I just don't think that the chambers are match grade and there's consistency from chamber to chamber to chamber. And the specs a lot of times will have really long chambers. I've just seen too much inconsistency with the 3 rifles that I've had. The one rifle, the Thompson Center that I did on the 10,000 subscriber giveaway a couple of years ago, that rifle I never hand loaded for, so I don't know if it had the same problem or not. I could only get 1.25 MOA out of it or so. That's my biggest problem. You pick up 7 different 270s, they're all going to like a different thing, different weight, different load, and you're not going to get any consistency out of them. Whereas if you pick up a 6.5 Creedmoor and you put 147 grain ELDM in it, you're going to get a good accurate shooting load. You put 127 grain Barnes LRX in it, you're going to get a good accurate shooting load. You might have to hand load, you might have to tinker. It might love the factory loads. And right now, my Bakari loves the factory loads better than my hand loads. But 6.5 Creedmoor, 308, even 300 Win Mag with like the 210 grain match loads and the 190 match loads. There's some really good bullets and really good consistent loads that group no matter what gun you have, they'll group MOA or better. And you just don't see that with the 270 Winchester. In fact, with my Browning A-bolt that I had as a teenager to a young adult, I had to file down the front of its magazine until it was almost structurally unsound just to get 3 rounds in it when it was a 5-round magazine, just to get 3 rounds in it so that I could actually have ammo that groups in my rifle in my magazine. Our second reason, the 270 Winchester is infamous for its lack of bullet weights when compared to better all-around cartridges. This is kind of a myth, as it does go from 85 grain all the way up to 160 grain. That's its main range. But even the 85 grain are hard to find, and anything over 150 grain usually requires a custom barrel with a custom twist rate. Compare this with 7mm Remington Magnum or 280 Remington, which can do the job from 110 grain all the way up to 190 grain, which are much better bullet weights from deer all the way up to anything in North America. The 308 Winchester can use 110 grain through 208 grain, and it's only 50 feet per second behind the 270 when using 150 grain projectiles according to the Hornady manual. Now 30-06 is your obvious top choice here, also using 110 grain, but all the way up to 220 grain, and there's even some 240 and 250 grain loads out there for 30-06, which I'm pretty sure you would need a custom twist rate for those loads as well. But the 30-06 can be used for anything in the world, really has been used for anything in the world. Should you use elephant with it? No, probably not. But it has definitely taken everything in North America, and even Jack O'Connor said it was better. In the 270, 85 grain Barnes is a varmint bullet, and the 90 grain Spear TNT is a varmint bullet. Not great bullets if you're shooting deer behind the shoulder, as they may break apart real quick. So basically, you have a bullet range of 100 grains in the GMX, which I did a test on the channel, to 150 grains, as even before the ammo crisis, you couldn't hardly find the 160 grain round nose Nosler partitions very often. So you're limited from 100 grains to 150 grains in the 270, whereas you have a much larger weight range from 110 all the way up to 220 in the 30-06 and 110 to 190 in the 7mm calibers. Finally, my last reason is other rounds have much better ballistics and use their case capacity and ballistic coefficients better than the 270. Let's go through a bunch of those charts. They either get better ballistic coefficients and better speed, or they just get more energy to begin with. Let's go through those charts. Okay, let's take a look at 270 Winchester versus 6.5 PRC. Both of these are using 150 grain long range AccuBond. The 270 Winchester has a BC of 0.591, and it is 0.62 for the 6.5 PRC. So not a horrible difference in BC. If you look at the muzzle energy, the 6.5 PRC is going over 150 feet per second faster, and that trend continues as you go out to 500 yards, where it's almost 200 feet per second faster. It has way more energy because of that muzzle velocity and that bullet. You are looking at 300 foot-pounds of energy more. Your wind drift is way better with the PRC. It gets even better out to 1,000 yards. And the drop is significantly better with PRC. It also gets way better out to 1,000 yards. So the drop is way better. And it has match grade chambers. So it's a match grade cartridge, but it's perfect for hunting. If you like that 100 grain to 160, 150 grain bullets, like 270 can do, 6.5 PRC obviously can do a lot better. The most obvious, or maybe the second most obvious cartridge to compare the 270 Winchester to is the 6.8 Western. And the 6.8 Western in this case has a 165 grain long range AccuBond, comparing it to the 270 Winchester's 150 grain long range AccuBond. And you might not think that's a fair comparison because of the different bullet weights, but I think it is because you really would have to tweak a 270 to get it to shoot the 165 grains by putting on a new 1 8 twist barrel, which comes standard in the 6.8 Western. So we're going to look at what you can standardly shoot out of standard rifles that you can buy off the shelf. In this chart, you can see that the 6.8 Western isn't getting that much muzzle velocity difference, but it does have a heavier bullet. And so that heavier bullet still carries more velocity, about the 30 to 50 feet per second, all the way out to 500 yards. It even has a little bit more than that difference at 500 yards. Because of the heavier bullet and the slightly more velocity that it has, the 6.8 Western has more foot-pounds of energy starting at the muzzle and going all the way out to 500 yards. At 500 yards, it's over 250 foot-pounds of energy, and that's pretty significant. And it's that at 400 yards. And at 300 yards, it's 301 foot-pounds of energy. Pretty significant difference. You know, the drop, it's not that significant. The drop, you can see the wind drift and the drop, not that significant, but still significant enough to make a difference. Everybody knows that just a little bit of wind drift helps, a little bit of drop helps. So here is a comparison most of you probably didn't think of making or think I would make in this video, but 270, you know, I've always said it's queen to 30-06, but here's the reason why it is queen. If you put a 130 grain Barnes TTSX bullet in both of these cartridges, even though the 270 has a significantly higher ballistic coefficient, the 30-06 can still get a lot more velocity, over 125 feet per second more velocity, and therefore the BC difference between 270 and 30-06 is not made up out to 500 yards. So it takes at 500 yards for the 270's velocity to surpass the 30-06, or it takes 400 yards for the energy of 270 to catch up with 30-06. And both of these have a Barnes 130 grain TTSX. The 270 with a 130 grain load is what everybody knows it for. And I just wanted to throw this in here, but the 30-06, at least out to 300 yards, does the 130 grain load better than the 270. So if you're just a deer hunter in Georgia with your 130 grain load, you're better off with the TTSX in 30-06 than you are with the 270. Now here we have a battle the 270 kind of wins a little bit, and it's the 270 versus the 280 Remington. And the 270 came out first, and that's pretty much the reason why it's more popular. But you can also see its muzzle velocity is a whole lot higher for not that huge a difference of grain. So when I was looking at ballistics on the 280 Remington, I was really surprised that the 139 grain LRX, which is what we have here, it only gets 2988. Maybe you get 3000 according to the Hornady manual. This is from Barnes's actual data, and I've looked it up twice. And the speed difference really surprised me. I thought the 280 Remington would have at least, with even though the bullet weighs just a little bit more, I would have thought it at least got 30-50. The muzzle velocity really makes a difference here, and you can see the 270 Winchester really beats the 280 Remington. And that's why the 280 Remington isn't that popular. What has really become popular in the last few years is the 280 Ackley approved. So the popular caliber in the 7mm diameter lately has been the 280 Ackley improved, or 280 AI, and it was getting really popular before the ammo crisis started. You could even find it on the shelves more than you could find 280 here in Alaska. So it became really popular. Sheep hunters absolutely love it. For the same reason the Jack O'Connor loved the 270 Winchester as a sheep gun. It is definitely a great sheep cartridge. Let's look at the ballistics comparison here. We have 139 grain Barnes LRX again with the 129 grain Barnes LRX out of the 270 Winchester. And you can see for the same type of gun, for the same action and length, you're just going to get far more energy. And out the 500 yards, you're still getting over 100 foot-pounds more energy. The velocity is really, really good. It starts to get to about the same right there around 400 yards, 300 yards, but it is pushing a heavier bullet. So the fact that it can push a heavier bullet and still have the same velocity and pretty much the same drop as a 270 means it beats it. So it's pushing a heavier bullet at the same velocities and it can beat the 270. There it is. Well, that's our conclusion. What do you guys think? Is the 270 Winchester obsolete? The 30-06 beats it. The 6.5 PRC beats it. The 6.8 Western beats it. The 280 Ackley Improve beats it. You get really close with 308 and 150 grains. You get kind of close with 150 grain 7mm weight. So if you need something light or recoil, you can do that. You get really close with the new 130 grain 25-06. That gets really close, although it requires a custom rifle. So there's a lot there that could be said, but I just think the 270, it's a middle of the road cartridge in the middle of a pack of a lot of other cartridges. And those newer cartridges with better ballistic coefficients and faster velocities make this cartridge obsolete. Now, that being said, if you love this cartridge, put how much you hate this video down in the comments. I'll continue to use 270. I probably won't even buy those other cartridges except for the 6.5 PRC, which I already have. So tell me what you think. Is the 270 obsolete? It's still fun to shoot. It's still powerful enough to kill anything you need to kill. So that being said, like, share, and subscribe. Join my MeWe group so you can get all the links that YouTube won't let me post to support the channel. Join my Patreon if you want to be able to support the channel that way and have direct contact with me and videos early. Take care. God bless. We will see you at the range.